With the trade deadline now past us, we're turning our focus towards the offseason and the biggest free agents on the market. This time, we are talking about the power forwards in today's video. My name is Donnie Freeman here on the Basketball Bulletin, joined by Trevor. And you guys know him pretty well, of course. And it's pretty weird that I'm introing the show, but he insisted I do it. So there we go. But Trev, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. We've got a little technical issue. I can't actually control the show right now due to a technical issue. So I appreciate you taking the reins here for me, Donnie, and running things. Yeah, the power forward market, it's going to be an interesting one. There's some fascinating names, particularly that guy at the top, LeBron James.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it's wishful thinking for my Lakers fan heart here, but I don't see LeBron James actually being available this summer.
No, I mean, I've seen some speculation as to whether or not he would leave or maybe go to Dallas or something like that. I don't know, but I don't think he's gonna.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, exactly. Just like all the other times he's been available, I think it's safest to say he retains where he's at.
Yeah, I would imagine. I don't think he necessarily picks up his player option. I think he signs a new deal. We also see Julius Randle there with the player option. Now, Randle, I think, actually picks up that player option, almost $30 million on that deal, actually almost $31 million on that deal for next year. I don't think Julius Randle gets that on the market. So I think he's a guy, and the same thing with the next guy, John Collins. I think both of those guys pick up their player options for this coming season.
Yeah, Randall's a weird one because I am pretty positive that he was traded just because salary filler. I think that they really and that's not to say he's not a great player. I think he is, but I think that they really wanted DiVincenzo to pair long term with Ant, and they didn't really have plans with Randle. He's also been not very healthy. I think he's missed about the last month or so, give or take, last time I checked. But it's not really gone great regardless with him there. It's a really clunky fit. We talked about that a lot. So I just don't know if he's done enough this season to warrant getting more than that, especially as he moves on. Probably wherever he goes, there's not money on the market anyway, but he's probably not going to be like a first option guy anyway. So it's just a weird situation.
Yeah, Randle could be a tricky fit. Has not played a game in the month of February. Has not played a game in the month of February for the Minnesota Timberwolves. But numbers in terms of what Randle's putting up and producing: 19 points, 7 boards, 4.5 assists. Like, he's still producing and shooting. 32% from three, not quite good enough. But he's a difficult fit in a lot of places. And so that's the challenge. Not only is there not a lot of cap space out there on the market, and so that would mean that if Randle wants to get somewhere else, we're probably going to have to see a sign and trade. But how many teams are really going to be going after Julius Randle in free agency and want to commit big money to him? Probably not a lot. He's a valuable player. Certainly if a team could scoop him up for the MLE, they'd be thrilled with that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I don't think anybody's tripping over themselves to give him $35-40 million or something along those lines. So that's why I think he winds up just picking up that option. So there's two guys that I don't think are actually on the market. And then John Collins, same thing. He said he's done some good things for the Utah Jazz this season, but I don't see anybody giving him $30 million. So John Collins probably not really on the market. The next one, though, is interesting. Dorian Finney-Smith, another Laker, he's actually extension eligible right now. But Donnie, this could be one of those ones where we hear like free agency starts July 1st. We could hear June 30th. Dorian Finney-Smith reaches a new deal with the Lakers, and it confuses the hell out of everybody because people are going to say, wait, free agency hasn't started yet. No, he can sign that extension all the way up until the end of this league year.
Yeah, he became extension eligible just over the last couple of weeks here. I was kind of hoping we would have heard about it already, like they would have just kind of got things done. But yeah, DFS, the Lakers would be insane to let him walk. There should be no reason why he leaves unless it's just for an insane amount of money increase or anything like that. But otherwise, he's been insane for this team, brings all the intangibles, everything that they need, and is one of the perfect role players you can plug into a lot of different places.
And then we've got Marvin Bagley, a.k.a. the guy drafted, one of two guys, I guess, drafted ahead of Luka. Brutal.
Man.
Brutal.
That was the Kings, right?
That was the Kings. The Kings took him. It went Ayton, and then Bagley, and then Luka went third that year. Absolutely brutal for Sacramento. Obviously not a King anymore. He's a minimum guy, I think, if we see him in the NBA. But Bobby Portis, a name that popped up there on the trade market. I like Bobby Portis a lot as kind of a rangy big, can play the 4 or the 5. I don't think the Bucks want to let him leave, but if I'm Bobby Portis, I don't think I'm picking up that $13.4 million option. I'm opting out, and at the very least getting a longer deal, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, firstly, I'm noticing that a lot of these guys, like we talked about, even Collins, these guys we're going to look at next have been on the market or were on the market recently. But then the thing with Bobby now is that with the suspension, he may have to take that, right?
That's the right. The suspension. Now it sounded like, and he was suspended for what, 25 games.
Yeah,
It
he's gonna
sounded like it
miss
was
most of the season.
a mistake. Wasn't like he was intentionally trying to. But again, everybody says that
Yeah,
whenever they
but
get,
we did those videos. I think I did a solo video on it. I'll tell you, most people don't buy it.
they don't buy it. They think he's lying.
They don't buy it. Most people on our videos did not buy that stuff. So I do wonder about that. But regardless, I just think that missing all those games, having that on his track record, he may not. I don't know.
Where do you fall? Do you buy it?
I think it was an honest mistake, but I could be wrong. That's what everyone says.
I think that it is what everybody says whenever they get caught taking something that they shouldn't. As an athlete, you got to be so careful in what you take, everything, all your supplements, all that kind of stuff, and this is why it can be devastating. I don't know though. I mean, teams know what he is at this point.
Yeah,
29 years old, they know what he is. I think that there's going to be money out there for him. I think if the Bucks have any hesitation on paying him at least MLE money, I think teams will be lining up to give him the MLE and would be happy to do it.
Isn't that what he's making right about now anyway?
Right, which is about what he's making now. But there's not cap space out there. So is a team going to say, hey, we'll do a sign and trade so we can pay him $20 million a season? Maybe, but I don't know. I mean, the Bucks could be a team that could give him a nice boost. But at the very least, I think if the Bucks blink at all, a bunch of teams will be happy, even with the suspension, to give him
for the record
$14 million.
For the record, I agree with you. I just was wondering if like maybe his market would be a little bit suppressed because of the issues with that and the optics around it potentially. But I think he's worth exactly what he's making now, and I think a lot of teams would line up to give it to him. And I, as a result, thinks the Bucks should try to retain him. I wanted to also just on that topic of trying to retain your player. Last video, we talked about that with like a few guys like Naz Reid. And there was one comment that stood out to me that said, you guys need to realize that just because teams want to retain their guys doesn't mean that they can. And in most cases, if a team really wants to retain a player, they can do so. So I do think that if opportunity arises for some of these guys and they need to stay where they're at, the team wants to keep them, they'll find a way to get it done.
As long as the player wants to stay, then I mean, teams are in better position to retain their players than they were, perhaps in the past, decades ago. But in most cases, teams, if they really want to keep a player, they're going to find a way to do it. The Pacers are probably going to move off of some of their wings in order to keep and give enough money to Miles Turner. If the Wolves say we really want to keep Naz Reid, given that there's not a team out there with cap space, unless the Brooklyn Nets talk themselves into really going after him, and maybe they will, you never know. I think they'll be in good position to do so. And part of it is the market with not a lot of cap space being out there. Part of it is I think teams are doing a better job now of developing relationships with players and doing what they can to keep them. Obviously, every situation is different, but I do think like Bobby Portis, if the Bucks want to keep him, they'll find ways to do it and make it happen. You look at some of the other guys. Now we get into these players who are kind of more hit and miss. Like everybody on the list so far, aside from Marvin Bagley, I feel pretty good about saying this dude's playing 30 plus minutes a night for my team, and you're happy with that.
I don't know what you're talking about. Bagley was the second overall pick just a handful of years ago, 7 years ago.
Well, you know what? So was Anthony Bennett, right? He was a number one overall pick. Now we're getting into some older guys: Larry Nance Jr., Chris Boucher, Trey Lyles, Jeff Green is 57 years old as of this point.
Kuminga.
What do we think about those guys? There's an interesting quartet there: Boucher, Larry Nance Jr., Trey Lyles, Jeff Green, all older players. Lyles is 29. Somehow Larry Nance Jr. is 32. All of these guys can be decent backup 4 or 5 combos. Who would you prefer to have out of that group?
That's team specific, like just Lakers or?
In a vacuum. If you got to pick any of those 4 players?
Probably Lyles.
Yeah.
I'd say probably Lyles, maybe Nance. Some of that's a little bit of age, right? Lyles winds up being the youngest guy. I like Lyles because of his ability to shoot the ball. He's also a good glue guy and solid defender. So I would take him. He's not a great defender, but he's okay. But I would take him.
Yeah, I think that the bottom line is if you wind up signing any of these guys should all be sub MLE money. You wind up signing any of them, you at least know you've got a guy that can play 10, 15 minutes a night, but you're not exactly jumping for joy that you signed him. Jonathan Kuminga, though, next guy on the list here. Yeah. He's an interesting one. I do think he winds up sticking with the Warriors. They resisted trading him for so long, but he will be a restricted free agent. Could this be what the Nets do? Because the Nets have done this in the past. When they have cap space, they sometimes target restricted free agents, throw out big money, and then make their teams feel the pain of having to match a front-loaded offer, which is what the Nets love to throw out there. I wonder if this is where we see some Nets shenanigans come into play.
That would be really funny. I guess Kuminga is probably one of the most enticing young guys on the market just in general this upcoming year as RFA. So if you're the Nets, then why not, right? And I also think that if they mess around and do that, the Warriors, for whatever reason, don't match. I think he fits their timeline and would be a good pickup for them too. But
exactly,
I think that could be kind of interesting.
It would not shock me at all to see the Nets mess with the Warriors and go through a big offer at Jonathan Kuminga, do things to it front loaded, demand that most of the money be paid before the season even starts and stuff like that they could do. Add in a player option, add in a trade kicker, all the bells and whistles. I can see the Nets delivering that to Jonathan Kuminga and then Jonathan Kuminga putting the Warriors on the clock. Then we get into Precious Achiuwa, who's done some things for the Knicks this year. Dario Saric hasn't been a lot. I'll tell you who I like, though. These are all just kind of backup guys here. Jake LaRavia. I like Jake. Jake LaRavia with the Kings. I was surprised the Grizzlies didn't pick up his deal for this next year. I don't think he's like MLE level guy or whatever, but he's a talented player. I think he's going to wind up being picked up somewhere.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a few other interesting guys down here, too, like Taurean Prince.
Yeah.
Bol, Gershon Yabusele.
Yabusele, he's going to get paid this summer.
I like EJ Liddell too.
Yeah.
But I think Yabusele gets paid too, but he's on the market technically.
He is. I think that the 76ers, they want to keep him. They resisted trade offers for him over the trade deadline. But Taurean Prince, I can't imagine Darvin Ham lets Taurean Prince get away from him. I can't imagine that. Darvin Ham's going to make sure he stays in Milwaukee.
Is that the determining factor?
It's got to be. It's got to be. You know what? Bol has done some things for Phoenix as well. Wouldn't shock me.
Bulls had a couple of really good games and then went back to being like a deep rotation guy. Last I saw for them, it's interesting to me just how like every team is like, oh, we like the idea of Bol, but we just don't like Bol. So maybe I need to watch more of him. I don't have a great opinion on him, but I just know that he's somebody that I hear highly of, but then I don't really see it. It's weird.
He's got intriguing intangible. I mean, the length, the ability to step out and shoot a little bit, but he's also never quite been all of that. He hasn't really put it all together, but he's an I mean, if you're going to take a flyer on somebody, he's the guy out there. So really, when we look at this list of the power forwards out there on the market right now, there's a few guys at the top where you're getting a solid player. After that, it thins out a lot. And you're looking at a guy that's probably more in the 10 to 20 minute a night range where maybe they're a backup, just kind of a rotation guy, something like that. So I think overall, this is a relatively thin power forward market, assuming that we're right on Julius Randle, John Collins, LeBron James, the main names that are, at the top of this list.
Yeah, I agree with you. Taurean Prince was one I was looking at just for a moment because we talked about him briefly, but last year I think a lot of people misremember the way he performed for the team.
Sure,
it was weird. I think he was overutilized, but then whenever his role got hampered back, the team was extremely good with him out there. He shot 40% for them. He didn't forget how to shoot. But this year he's kicked it up a notch. He's shooting 4 threes a game at 46%.
Whew.
Like
he's killing it.
He's on a minimum right now, right? There's no way he's on a minimum next year. So I do wonder what happens. Maybe a biannual or something.
Yeah, maybe a biannual. He could get a bump up off of that minimum salary too, just the standard raise off of that. Maybe there's something there. But yeah, Taurean is a guy that, look, if you could shoot the way he can, you're going to have a spot somewhere. So maybe he does. But again, Darvin Ham, he's not going to let him go. He's not going to let him go.
I don't expect the Bucks should want to keep him. Looking at
I think so too.
Here. So,
yeah. Well, in any event, I think this is a really interesting power forward class. Maybe not the deepest class. There's a number of guys who I think it makes sense for them to pick up their player option. Dorian Finney-Smith, I don't think will. I think Dorian Finney-Smith will decline it and sign an extension. I think that'll happen. I think LeBron will sign a new deal. I don't think he picks up his option, but he'll stay with the Lakers. And then I think Randle and John Collins will pick up their player options to stay with their teams. If they don't get traded, I think the Wolves are going to try to trade Julius Randle this summer. I think John Collins will very much be on the market, as he permanently is. Even back when he was with the Atlanta Hawks, he was on the trade market every single year. I think these guys will be available for trade, but in terms of actually signing somebody in free agency, most likely we're talking about backup guys at the power forward position this summer, which again, Donnie, adds into my overall theory that this is going to be the summer of the trade. This year, teams are going to make an impact on the trade market, and that's exciting. I think we're going to see a lot of deals go down.
Yeah, so because there's not money out there. There's some guys on the free agent market, but a lot of backup guys, not a lot of like needle movers out there. Mm-hmm. So it probably will see a lot of teams that opt to go more for trades. So I completely agree with you guys. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel here. We are keeping you guys up to date with all the content as it comes out. Also, if you haven't seen our center video, you can find that one on the screen right now. So make sure you click it, and we'll see you over there.